Well, good evening, everyone, and I'm pleased to report a decision of the Hamilton Police Services Board today. And I'll start by reading the resolution out to you that was approved by the board. The first part was that the Hamilton Police Services Board, as requested by Chief of Police Glenn De Caire, agreed to rescinding the motion of his motion to intention to retire. The second part is that the Hamilton Police Services Board extend the employment contract of Chief of Police Glenn De Caire for a further 2 years with an option for a further 3 years, and any further salary percentage increases will be tied to increases deemed to be due and owing to senior officers of the service over the contract extension period. So that's the resolution that was carried by the board today. And as you know, there was a motion in December to accept the resignation of the chief. And so in my mind at least, and I believe it was in the minds of most of the members of the board when the majority approved the resolution, is what's changed since December. And I'll just focus in on that. Number one is the chief is asked to resign, or asked to rescind his letter of resignation. The second part is we received the resignation of Deputy Chief Ken Leenders, and while there was nothing predetermined, I'm hopeful that in a future chief we can hire someone within, and if we did that, Deputy Chief Gert and the two deputies would both be inexperienced if Deputy Gert was accepted as a successful candidate for the Pan Am Games, which is a big event taking place in our city next July. And on the Pan Am Games, I've learned as chairman of the stadium subcommittee that they expect that 30% of the attendees coming for the Pan Am Games will be coming to watch soccer. And of course, I think we all know that a lot of the people who come to soccer events may not behave the best. And so we've really got to have a hard and fast security system. Plus, we believe that they're going to be expanding the scope of what Hamilton will do during the Pan Am Games. And so we thought we needed an experienced senior command within the organization to get through that period. Another reason is, and it struck me when I attended the Police Services Board conference in Toronto 2 weeks ago, that Chief De Caire is the champion. He wrote the white paper, and clearly around the province is the champion on the suspension without pay issue. This is an issue that's outraged the taxpayers of our city. Chief De Caire is leading that, and it's not expected that could be in place because you know, government moves slowly. We've got through the Police Services Board, we have to get through Chiefs of Police, then ultimately onto the province of Ontario. And I'm looking for Glenn to carry that when he gets before the government on behalf of the province to get that legislation changed. There's also the issue of the forensic building. It's a $15 million project, and since we accepted the resignation, or retirement of Chief De Caire, City Council has now approved the location. That's been a long drawn-out process as long as I've been on council, trying to get the right location. It's now been confirmed. We're into detailed design, and we want to get that across the finish line in the next 2 years. And you can't argue with the end results. We had the presentations to the board in April, and we've now seen that there was a 19% reduction in violent crime in 2012, which led the country. I understand the country is in the order of 2% in reduction in violent crimes, but in Hamilton here it was 19%. That's a hard statistic to argue with, that we aren't doing something right. And also the fact that we had in 2013 all the murders, we've had a 100% clearance rate already. Those are two KPIs that resonated with the board and with myself and caused me to change my vote and move on. And there are also other many major projects going on, which I know Chief De Caire can speak to more appropriately than I can. He's far more knowledgeable of it, but there's some exciting new projects that are coming on stream, including the crime analysis, scheduling time, and attendance reports. So for those variety of reasons, we changed our position, rescinded the letter of retirement, and agreed to renew his contract for 2 more years. Just a simple extension of the existing contract with the same terms and conditions. We're in negotiations right now with the Police Association. Once that is finished, we'll move on to senior officers, and they typically follow the other officers. And whatever the senior officers get is what Chief De Caire will get in the future years if we go the full 5 year or go 2 years with the extension.
Mr. Chair, maybe we should hear from the Chief now and
Yes,
take
please.
questions after?
Yep.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you very much, Chair. Everyone is well aware that the board is responsible in law for the adequate and effective delivery of policing services in Hamilton. And in order for the board to carry out that important function, there is an awful lot of information that the board has taken its time to absorb. I would like to recognize the chair of the board, Lloyd Ferguson, for his leadership and congratulate the members of the board for taking such a diligent approach to the decisions that are before them, a very thorough and constructive analysis of our past in the Hamilton Police Service, of where we find ourselves in the present, and certainly the challenges that present themselves to our organization in the future. This board clearly wants to build on the success of the last 5 years and continue to advance a mandate into the future, which is focused on the board's business plan, which is focused on keeping our community safe, safer in fact than it is today, and focused on the efforts of our members and our community partners. So the reports that the board has received this year clearly indicate the outstanding work of the men and women of this service with respect to the excellence in public safety that is delivered. As mentioned briefly by the board chair, crime statistics being down significantly in this city, consisting of an overall reduction in crime. More specifically, assaults in 2013 are down by over 400. Robbery is down to 407 incidents in 2013, which is down almost 100 incidents from 2012, and more impressively, down from 762 robberies on our streets in 2007. And break and enter has reduced from 2006, where it exceeded over 6,000, has been cut by more than 50% to 2,500 last year. Our drug enforcement is up, our traffic enforcement is up, our collisions of our citizens are at the lowest level they've been in 20 years. And what resonates with this community, what has resonated with the board, and what continues to resonate with all of our members is the 19% reduction in violent crime. And that must be kept within context that 4 of 7 budgets that have been brought forward previously are the lowest budgets that we have seen, under 4%. And last year, the Hamilton Police Service advanced the lowest budget in 14 years. We have introduced innovative policing strategies in the last 5 years, which include the action strategy, the social navigator, focusing on those that suffer drug, alcohol, and mental health challenges. And our strategy is focused on recidivist criminals through our bail compliance unit. We are very proud of our case preparation unit, our protocol and partnership with St. Joe's, and now we have gone even further to enhance the delivery of service to those that suffer mental illness in our community with the implementation of the Coast Rapid Response Team. We need to keep in mind that the excellent work of our men and women has continued to pay off with dividends for our citizens. We have reviewed all 200 policies of our service, and we have completed a recent ministry audit which resulted in no recommendations being made by the ministry, which in totality is the first time that has ever occurred in policing. I have mentioned quite often and am very proud of the work of our men and women across the delivery of services, and we have in 2013 received awards in victim services, action, social navigator, emergency preparedness, community policing. The breadth of the awards that have been given to the men and women of this service indicates the important nature of their work. The chair is absolutely correct in his statement of the challenges that focus on the future. And even today, we advanced the Time and Resource Management Project, focusing on electronic scheduling of officers, looking for the next big savings in the deployment of police officers, which will no doubt be a budget saving down the road. We also continue to work in analyzing crime for more strategic deployment of officers. We are facing significant challenges in the planning of Pan Am, and we anticipate that the footprint for the Pan Am Games for Hamilton will expand, and that will, I'm sure, in time be announced by the Toronto 2015 group. The chair is also correct in that we are advancing the new forensics building and we have moved to the stage of designing and working with the architect to get that building up and running. And we have, in fact, suspension without pay issues that the chair has also addressed. I do want to thank the men and women of this service who have placed our community in a terrific position with respect to public safety, and I am very encouraged that we all share the common goals, which is overall public safety, community safety, and the bottom line is less victimization. And I will add to that I am very proud to remain as the Chief of Police and to continue the work of the team. And it is but my small part and honor to lead this team, but it is the men and women of this service that carry out their work every single day that I am most proud of. And that said, our partners in policing, they receive an awful lot of credit as well for their support and their passion towards public safety. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions? I want to, Chair, let's just one at a time, please. Thanks, Andrew.
Lloyd, what was the vote?
It was done in camera, so under the act, I'm not able to disclose, but it was not unanimous.
It was not. You said you switched your vote.
Correct.
Did anyone else switch their vote?
I cannot disclose what I said in camera, Andrew, that we read the Police Services Act before we adjourned, and it says that anything discussed in camera must stay in camera. But I will admit I switched my vote.
Scott?
Why not have the chief reapply for his job?
Well, there's a cost associated with that of some $80,000. Plus, it's all these new issues that came to light post the acceptance of his retirement notice, which I explained during the conference. So, a recruitment company, I believe, was in the order of $80,000 going to be charged. And by the way, I have a letter from them. I confirmed with the president. I got a letter that we can now switch that retainer we paid them over to the recruitment of the new deputy to replace Deputy Leaners. And so there's going to be no cost to the service for starting the process of doing an executive search.
So you haven't, Chad said that you'd already spent $20,000 looking for a new chief. That's not accurate?
What's accurate is that we got invoices for $20,000. We hadn't paid them yet, but that $20,000 will now be switched over to the deputy recruitment.
Scott,
Chief,
you got a question?
And in fairness to Chad, he didn't know that when he made that statement. I showed him the...
So it's not going to cost any, this hasn't cost anything?
Doesn't cost anything.
but if you wouldn't mind moving the microphone so we can actually hear what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Joey?
To the chief, you're now getting a second term as chief. This process has become politicized, which means your office could be politicized by it. How are you going to prevent that politicization from impacting your credibility in the community?
The office of the chief will remain independent in terms of the application of the law, the fair and unbiased application of the law. If we go back to the original 2009 job call process for this position, right on page 1 it says that the chief will protect the independence of the office of the chief. And I fully intend on doing that, and we will do that by having our officers apply the law fairly in an unbiased fashion, and we will protect all elements of our community.
Did the lobbying have an impact? The lobbying by Jervinsky and by Ron Foxcroft?
I can tell you that I am very proud of the discussion that has taken place in our city with respect to the passion and commitment for community policing and public safety. And any member of our community, and I have heard from thousands of people in this community as I've attended events from September of last year, I can tell you that I'm very proud that people are so in tune with public safety. And I did listen to all of the people that spoke to me. And I said originally, I remained committed to and do not change my position today. I would listen to the board, I would listen to the members of the community, and they have been all very influential in changing my decision.
Scott, you got a question for the chair?
I just want to comment on that also, because I think it's important to note that I also received a number of emails, phone calls, contact in the community. I just went through Heritage Days in Ancaster. And it's got a lot of media attention, so a lot of people were approaching me. And there was two views on this. But just in fairness to Mr. Foxcroft, there's no question that Charles Jervinsky called me. And I think he's acknowledged that in Andrew's columns. But Ron Foxcroft never called me once. I didn't know where he stood on this or that he was even involved until I read the Hamilton Spectator. And I ran into him. I see him a lot socially, and he never once raised it with me. And I asked him, how come he didn't talk to me about that? And he says, because I was asked to, but I wouldn't, because you know, we played some golf together and he didn't want to put our personal friendship at risk because of that. So I was never lobbied by Mr. Foxcroft. Yes, I was lobbied, as I was by, I don't know about thousands, but hundreds of contacts, either by email, by phone, or in my community.
Why did you not reach out to the associations? My understanding is that the board never spoke to either association about this matter. Why was that?
I did have a conversation with a member of the executive of the association. We didn't do a formal poll of the association where they stood. I'm not convinced that would have been appropriate, and so my job as elected person is to represent the community, and that's who I listen to very carefully.
Scott?
Well, notwithstanding, you know, the decision that you made, and certainly without regard to the chief personally, do you think it's appropriate, and I have to ask you a question I've asked a dozen times, do you think it's appropriate that a small group of unelected officials and wealthy lobbyists are able to pick the police chief of a major Canadian city?
I'm going to tell you they didn't. I'm going to tell you I was approached by a complete cross-section of our city. Not just, and as I say, Ron didn't even call me. And so that's a bit of in my view, a bit of a misconception that's out there, that this was the caviar club, if you will, that did this lobbying. I had, and I get contacted regularly from the community trying to give views on different issues. And zoning issues are always a big issue that we get contacted about. So I don't accept the argument that it was their lobbying, I hate that word, but it was their contact to us that convinced me, because it wasn't. It was everybody contacting me. Look, at what really drove my decision is, you know, as you sort of wake up in the middle of the night, what are you going to do about this thing? Because it was not an easy decision. The process wasn't great, I acknowledge that. But what woke me up in the middle of the night was, it's the right thing for public safety. And that's the key role of the police, to have an experienced person like Chief De Caire at the helm for another 2 years. And also, you know, now we have to do that at a reasonable cost, and the chief and I will be continuing to have spirited conversations about that. But that's why I voted the way I did, because I really thought it was the right thing to do for public safety. Hard statistics show that.
That's not the issue. I'm not talking about the chief and his qualifications and his abilities. I'm talking about the process. And this would not have gotten off the ground if some lobbyists, or whatever you want to call them, had not begun to agitate for this. And do you think it's appropriate that that agitation and the votes of a few unelected officials can decide who's going to be the chief of a major Canadian police?
I don't agree with you that they did make that decision. We made the decision. And of course, a real turning point for me, and I think I was quoted, well, I know I was quoted in one of Andrew's articles, where I said, it never works to hire someone back who's resigned. I experienced this about 4 times in the private sector, where real stars in your organization get lured away by a competitor. And you do whatever you can to try to get them to stay. And it doesn't work, because if you give more money to one individual, not the rest, or if you give them, you know, special vacations or other perks, it gets out instantly. But this one was different. What really got the ball rolling was because I had no idea that the chief wanted to stay. And when he said, I want to withdraw my letter of retirement, it wasn't the other way around, us going to him. And so that was what is significantly different from what I experienced in the private sector. I never experienced that where someone had resigned or retired and decided later they wanted to rescind it. So,
Chief, can you address the issue of, you know, to be blunt, that this was Plan B, that you initially resigned, perhaps thinking you would go somewhere else, or you had an idea of what you wanted to do, and whatever that was, it didn't work out, and so you wanted to remain here?
What I can tell you is that my commitment to the people of Hamilton has never wavered. My commitment to my oath of office has never wavered. And the commitment of our officers in the strategic advancement of our crime plan has never wavered. So our commitment here is exactly the same as it has always been. We work every minute of every day for the people of Hamilton, and we'll continue to do so.
Why did you
resign,
Chief?
I have listened to the people of Hamilton, and I have listened to their comment, and it has been a resounding amount of support for the men and women of this service, and that is a very strong mandate to move forward. and that is why I rescinded my application to retire. And the people have clearly spoken, and the board has now issued a very clear mandate to go forward and continue the work that has been done.
Then why did you resign in the first place then, Chief?
At the point in September, I had a mandate from this board from 2009, which had been delivered on every aspect. I had taken my time, gone back to the original mandate, and checked off all of the things that were requested of me with respect to this board, and had delivered those with the men and women of this service proudly, and had delivered them at the highest level. And at that point, I had made a decision that required an additional mandate to move forward. And now, with the number of changes that have taken place, the number of challenges that have presented themselves since last September, I made that decision, and we will now move forward.
Chief, but why did it take you so long to go public about your decision to, your withdrawal of your resignation, if you will, when you had clearly been telling other people in the community much earlier, several months earlier, that you didn't want to leave? Why did it take you so long?
What I have always done is said that I will listen to the board, I will listen to the requests of the board, and I will listen to the people of Hamilton. And it did take time to hear the people of Hamilton. You know as well as anybody that I literally attend hundreds of community events and meetings throughout the year, and I have been besieged by people with the support for the work of the men and women of our service. And that is the most proud thing that has occurred here, is the work of the men and women on the front line, civilian and sworn, that do this work every day. And I have often said publicly, I wish that you got to see policing from where I get to see policing, because I listen to people who are victims of crime. I listen to their stories. I speak with them, as I did earlier today, speaking with people who have been victimized by crime, and I heard what they wanted. And what they wanted was for me to continue my work as a part of this team, and I'm proud to do so.
Chief De Caire, what does a second term
last question.
What does a second term look like different than the first? Your first one's been a bit rough in public opinion and at the board. What are you going to be doing differently in the second term to prevent that type of repeat?
We are absolutely going to stick to critical analysis of the issues, proper business planning, proper presentation of the issues before the board, and we will take the board's direction and the board's governance role very, very seriously.
But what are you going to do differently? How are you changing in the second term?
What we're going to do is we're going to continue with our business plan, we're going to continue with all of those deliverables, and we are going to continue with the engagement of our community.
I think it's a question about you personally.
Thank you.
Completely convinced that our men and women will deliver and deliver with excellence.
Thanks, everybody. That's great. There's a news release that's just floating around here, so it's not quite on. Anyway, it's a final, but it's not on the letterhead yet. So thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you, Lloyd.
Thanks, Chief. Does everybody get one?
No, I think that one.
There you go.